Good day everyone, my name is Marigold Yang, and let's proceed now to the world empires of industrial capitalism in 1750 to 1950. Phase 1. The formation of national economy. Basic 18th century economic conditions continued well into the 19th century until the railway of steamship began to lower transportation costs significantly and to create new circuits of capital accumulation that focused on sites of industrial production in Europe and the US. But important structural changes in the world economy began the later decades of the 18th century. First, European imperial control of the Americas was broken, first in the north and then the south. This accelerated the rise of capital and capitalism as a force in the reorganization of nationally defined states, whose professed purpose was the political representation of the interests of their constituent property owners and entrepreneurs. The independence movement in the Americas and revolution in Haiti and France produced new kinds of national territoriality within the world economy, and states that throve of greater control of resources within their boundaries than any before. Second, European imperial expansion shifted into Asia, where the use of military power by European national states of the protection of their national interests became a new force in the process of capital accumulation. The British Empire expanded without official policy sanction throughout most of the 19th century, as British troops went in simply to protect the operation of the British nationals operating as merchants overseas. The national state thus became both of a mechanism for the control of territory within its own borders and for the expansion of national enterprise around the world. The U.S. expanded over land and into Latin America by the expansion of the enterprise of its citizens and expansion of its military power, as the British Empire expanded into Asia and then Africa. Along with the French and Dutch, in the discourse of the nationalism, the nation and the empire live in their opposition to one another. But economic imperialism was standard practice for economically expansive nation-states, and gun-both diplomacy became a typical feature of economic transaction among hostile states. The 1840s formed a watershed into the institutionalization of the world regime of national expansion and international economic organization, when the British Navy force opened the interior of China to British merchant settlements with military victories waged during the Opium Wars to protect the right of British merchants to trade in the opium in China, and when the U.S. Admiral Perry forced the Japanese to open their ports to American trade. National economies are linked to the expanding global economy. Short-term benefits of economic growth seems obvious. The more businesses and nations that profit, the more individuals have jobs and resources, and the higher their standard of living. When the national economy is booming, the development of the local economy is always positioned as a higher priority than healthcare and the other social services. Phase 2. World Circuits of Industrial Capital. The integration of separate specialized world regions of agricultural and industrial production within a world economy of capital accumulation occurred during the 19th century. The industrial technologies of the factory, railway, telegraph, Gatling guns, steamship facilitated this development, but as important were the organizational technologies of modernity, which include state bureaucracy, land service, census operations, government statistics, national legal system, and the like. Institutional markers, the abolition of the slave trade, and the rise of international protocols for the operation of the national competition at a world scale culminating in the Treaties of Berlin that organized a partition of Africa in the 1880s.